Hey, Johnny Good here from johnnygood.com. Today is day one of my 10-day Screencast challenge, where I'm going to be covering a bunch of things that I've learned over the last few years from home recording, and hopefully there'll be something in there that'll be useful for you to take into your recordings in the future. Apologies in advance for the guy with his lawnmower outside. It's driving me crazy. This is home recording. These are the things that happen. What a joy. Usually when I'm doing a vocal, but hey. Okay, so I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught mix engineer or producer, musician. I'm guessing that the majority of people watching this probably are too. There's so many things. I mean, I say self-taught, but there's so many things and resources that I've learned from. Most of what I know is from just Googling stuff, forums. There's some brilliant YouTube channels out there, which I'll cover in the week. But even with all these, there's just a load of mistakes which I've made over the years. I'm relatively new to recording in a DAW, maybe 5 or 6 years. I've been recording like this previously. About 15 or 20 years prior to this, I've been using either reel-to-reel or cassette tape multi-track recording, or digital multi-track or mini disc multi-track. I kind of lived through the era of technology leading up to recording on a DAW. So once I got hold of this, although the process of recording I was quite experienced in, understanding the technological techniques, I was not. So I made a lot of mistakes. The first record of mine that I recorded on here about 5 years ago using Sonar 8, which I still use today, was called This Is England, and this is a song on it called Day Release. And I'm going to take you through 5 stupid, embarrassing mistakes that I used to make. Maybe you've never made them, maybe you're making them, or maybe it's just me. We'll find out. So the first thing, looking at Day Release here that I've recorded, and you may well spot mistakes that I've made that I'm not going to cover right now just by looking at this screen. But the first key thing, which I think I did for this whole record, was plug in a mono instrument and then recorded it in stereo. I don't know why. The default recording input is stereo in Sonar. I don't know whether it is in every DAW, but that's probably why. I didn't even look to check that, to drag it down, have a look at the options and go, I'm recording in the left input, that'll do. I just don't know why. I didn't even look at it and think, that's strange. So what we've got is 2 identical left and right channels being filled with exactly the same sound, because they only plugged in one mono sound. It makes no sense. Don't do it. All it does is take up your CPU power, and if you're putting in amp models, which I have, it starts to cause problems when you get to mixing. It's just a pointless thing to do. So when you load up your track, if you're recording on the left input or the right input, if you've got 2 inputs in your sound card, then tell your DAW what channel it needs to record. It's as simple as that. On each track, on each DAW, I'm sure everything's going to be pretty much similar like this. You've got 3 choices. Okay, if you've got a bigger sound card with more inputs, you'll have more choices. Don't record in stereo. Maybe unless you've got a keyboard with a stereo sound. That's the only kind of thing I can think of where that might be handy. So don't make my stupid mistake. The second one is you don't need to load loads of effects in the effects bin like I did on this song. It will give your computer a headache. So just looking at this track here, Drive Guitar 1, and it's got an amp modeler, which are really taxing on your computer anyway. It's got an EQ, a compressor and a reverb. Okay, fine. But I've got 2 drive guitars recorded, I've got 2 acoustic guitars recorded, and I've got 2 clean guitars recorded, and 4 of these are running an amp modeler anyway. So I've got 4 different amp modelers running, which is crazy. So what should I have done? Well, I set this up just a bit earlier before I started recording this, on the clean guitar, on the double track clean guitar here. I should have just set up a stereo bus. I've done one down here, called it Guitar 1, and in Guitar 1, let's just close these. In Guitar 1, I've put my amp modeler and I've put my compressor, and then I've sent both of these to Guitar 1 on the bus. So we've halved the power that the computer needs. Now, because we've double tracked, the only thing that's important really is to have separate EQs on these tracks, because if we're double tracking, we don't want exactly the same sound on either side. Okay, it's been played differently twice, but just to watch out for phasing problems, and just to make the most out of the double track, you want to fiddle around with the EQ. These days I would use the EQ on the mixing screen, on the track mixing screen, but this is what I did. I put everything in these effects bins here. Okay, well, it was a mistake. Don't make that mistake. Don't needlessly load up your effects bins. Take advantage of stereo buses where you can. It helps your CPU out, and it helps you in the mixing stage as well, loads. There's loads of cool techniques that you can use using bus sends and effects bins, which I'm not going to cover today. The third thing is I used to double track everything, and you can see even on this, I recorded 2 clean guitars, 2 drive guitars, 2 acoustic guitars. It's a lot of guitars. I still find guitars really hard to mix when they're piled up together. Not necessarily the guitars themselves, but I tend to mix the guitars, get everything sounding nice, and I come to the vocal and it's really hard. I have to then be chipping away more EQ from the guitar. Hard to keep a good guitar tone, especially when you've got 6, and get your vocal to sit in that hole nicely. Personally now, what I do is record a lot less guitars, or do a lot less double tracking, and try be a bit more inventive with my mix, or where I'm using the instruments to just create space. And get the most out of what I'm recording. Not that double tracking or even triple tracking is a bad thing. There's an excellent walkthrough from Butch Vig on YouTube talking about Nevermind. Check it out, where he's at the desk looking at what he did on Nevermind with Kurt, and that's triple tracked. I think they double tracked it, and then he wanted to triple track it just to get more power. I guess the point here is, I'm not Butch Vig. If you're as good as Butch Vig, then more power to you. But mixing that amount of guitars takes a lot of experience, particularly in rock music. Good amps, a great guitarist, somebody's great at double tracking. I've found over the years it's easier to look at a track and say, do I really need 6 guitars on this track? Okay. I find the same with vocals. I used to do the same with vocals. Personally, I just prefer 1 lead vocal. I used to double track every vocal, and it's kind of hard work. Okay, so don't double track everything like I used to. That's my personal opinion. The fourth one is back to double tracking. It's bad double tracking, and I used to do that. Because I was aiming at being good at double tracking, it took me years to really get good at it. And it's quite a hard thing to do. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to do 2 acoustic guitar tracks, the strums have to lock in together. If they don't, you have to go back and do them, because it really sticks out with vocals as well, because I used to double track a lot of those. If you don't get them to lock together, that just makes the track sound so sloppy and so hard to follow so quickly. Looking at these 2 acoustics, or say these 2 drives, look at these 2 clean ones actually. Hopefully, now I've said that, they should sound pretty good. So yeah, they're pretty tight, so that's pretty good double tracking. But it didn't always sound like that. And the 5th one, which I did loads, hopefully not so much since I've been releasing music, although I'm sure there's a few duds. But it's working on crap songs, like the crap ones, which you probably should be throwing away. I used to pretty much record everything, mainly because I wasn't so interested in songwriting. I would just kind of get my guitar, put some stuff down, then go, yeah, that's good enough. and I just wanted to record on it. That's all I was interested in doing, which is great. I learned loads, but what I found over time is that it was kind of deflating to spend maybe a couple of weeks on a song, show it to somebody, and they go, yeah, it's a crap song. No amount of production can really ever hide that. If you want to practice on your dud songs, I'm not saying don't do it, because I've done it, but I'm saying it's kind of a bit unrewarding at the end, and maybe focus a bit more on, spend just that little bit more time maybe making the chorus a bit better, because what you'll find, and what I find, is when you work on a good song, or if you're lucky enough to work on a great song, it kind of mixes itself and records itself. You put a guitar track down, it's kind of like, wow, this song sounds great already, and it's great all the way through the process, because there is the dynamic and the light and shade, and you've spent the time on the writing. So try to focus on working on good songs. If you're recording for somebody else, try to learn to pick out what is a good song, what isn't a good song. And again, that's going to make your mixing a bit more rewarding. So there's 5 things which I did, which looking back, I kind of wish I didn't, particularly all them stereo tracks. I hope that helps. Maybe you've been doing one of these things and it's made you think, or maybe you've never done these things. Maybe it's just me and I've made this video and it's just me, which would be pretty embarrassing. So let's hope not, for my sake anyway. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll be back tomorrow on my second day of my Screencast challenge. Thanks for listening.